Hello and welcome to the Accessory to Thought podcast. On this episode, Ben and I discuss faith. What does it mean? What's the definition of faith? It's the kind of word that people, when they're talking about faith, or they use the word faith, they usually don't mean exactly the same thing. So we've dedicated this episode to an explorative way to figure out what does faith actually mean and how does our definition fit in line with the way we use it and the context in which we use it in. Anyway, enjoy. I wouldn't be against joining the reserves.
Neither would I. But I know a lot of people who would be against me joining the reserves.
My family would be against me joining the reserves.
Yes, it's because we're young men, Josh, and we throw our lives away. Like all young men has ever done in any time, at any point in history. I reckon I'll not shoot anyone, because I'll get shot first.
Not by choice.
I'm going to start learning Russian. And have it
just in advance for us getting taken over, or would you?
It's gonna be like we're a squad, right, going through the nuclear waste of World War III, and then a Russian squad comes at us, and I just go in Russian. I found them, and point to you guys. I'm a Russian spy. I'm the reason Ukraine happened. All those trips to teach the Bible in English to Ukraine didn't happen, Josh. It was all set up. I have the nuclear codes for Northern Ireland. The IRA had them this whole time.
Can you imagine, like, how hard would it be for Northern Ireland to just turn into North Korea?
Not hard at all. You just have to... literally, you just have to crack down on one particular religion, and then it's game over.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, do you want to get on to this?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'm coming at this from a contemplative, I don't know what the crack is point of view.
Those are my favourite kinds of point of view.
Thank you.
Are you recording?
Yeah.
Have you been recording the whole time?
I recorded you lying on the ground as well.
Oh,
right? It's like a wee stupid interviews, only visual now.
Visual. Anyway,
as I was saying, I want this to be explorative in nature, because, for example,
homework.
What?
Homework.
What?
Homework. It's like
it's explorative.
Yeah, like research paper.
You're just saying words.
I'm just saying words.
I don't know what I'm saying now. I remember. So, for example, every time we're talking with Kyle, hello Kyle. Every time we're talking with Kyle, and you two talk about belief or faith or anything like that, it's like your definitions don't align,
right?
And then you talk about you don't have faith for faith's sake, you have it based on evidence, faith based on evidence, and then Kyle would say that's just normal belief. So I want to press a wee bit.
Okay.
What is the definition of faith?
Okay.
You know?
I'm just finding.
You're just Googling it.
I'm not Googling it. I wrote down
okay, so I was just thinking about this, and I've came to what I think is a good enough conclusion, and it sounds very much Jordan Peterson-y. It's the trust that the future will act in accordance to the truth. And that's what I think society is predicated on. It's the trust that the future will be in accordance to the truth. It's why you're able to trust our financial system. It's why you're able to trust the guy who's doing the till at your shopping centre. It's why you're able to trust your doctor, because you don't know these people. Does that make sense? What are you looking at? What are you searching?
They're my notes that I took ages ago.
Right. But are you following me?
I am following you.
And
say it all again. No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. Yes.
Yeah. Like, for example, say eBay. When eBay was just still new, there were these... I'm not sure exactly what the structure of it was, but there were people who would, like, be insurers, like insurance companies, like, say, you don't get your thing, you know, pay us and we'll ensure that you'll get your money back or whatnot. But the way eBay happened, there weren't really any scammers, surprisingly. There was this just faith and trust in being a reasonable person. And that's that same thing that allows society to function. Is this what allows eBay to function so smoothly?
Well, to me, faith is simply the understanding that you will be okay after doing a certain thing. After committing to a certain thing, you have faith that that the outcome will be positive, will be okay. Oh, like, for example, a leap of faith is not so much as... Belief is believing that your legs can climb up the ladder or climb up the top of the building, and your legs can walk you to the edge of the building and jump off it. That's belief, because your belief, due to the evidence, is you've been walking your whole life after you were a baby, so all the evidence is there that your legs can actually leap you off a building. But a leap of faith is knowing that you'll be okay after you take the leap. That's why it's called a leap of faith.
But
so it's what you're saying. It's that insurance. It's that trust. It's that understanding that, and what you're talking about society taking a loan out the bank. It's the kind of it's faith that there will be a positive outcome, that this will work out, that this will be okay. That's what faith is to me.
But what is the basis of that? What is it? Is there anything that it's predicated on?
Well, every day we live in faith. You know, for if we didn't live with any amount of faith, like if you can say, all right, well, we don't need faith anymore, then, you know, like I don't believe that can ever exist, because if I sit on a rickety old chair, all right, and it breaks, I've wrongfully placed my faith in that rickety old chair, but my common sense should have told me not to sit in the rickety old chair, you know. So the rickety old chair being an example of anything in life. And we can sometimes place our faith in that and place our faith or not in that. And yes, sometimes the chair breaks. The point is, that's experience, that's understanding, that's learning. You basically then get to identify, through the more rickety chairs you break, you get to identify what's a rickety chair and what isn't. A strange email comes up in your spam folder or something that said, "Oh, well, the iPhone, just give me your bank details." Obviously, you're like, nah. Well, that's the first time that ever happened. That's why a lot of old people get scammed, because they're just like, ooh. You know what I mean? They don't understand. They don't know any better because they haven't experienced those kinds of rickety chairs before.
But I think you need to you need to refine your definition a wee bit better, because so I was doing a bit of research and basic philosophy, right? So empiricism versus rationalism. Are you familiar? So faith isn't. It's not perfect. It just doesn't fit inside the box of empiricism or rationalism. Not to say they're necessarily against it, it's just that those boxes, those descriptions, those way of understanding things don't encompass faith, wherever faith is. So, because you gave an example of, right, I should have known better not sitting in that old chair. But that's like that's an argument from, right, the empirical evidence is, you know, I've sat in these chairs now and they're all fallen to bits. Maybe I should do something about that. That with the experience. But, you know, like, just life happens, okay? If you act in faith, so my definition is the trust that the future will be in accordance to the truth with a capital T, I suppose, right? If you live your life like that, it's not dependent on right, okay, I know that the future will be in accordance to the truth. And when I say the future, I mean like the ultimate end of everything.
Because nothing
right?
can stop truth with a capital T.
Yeah, well, that's what the faith is predicated on. But it's not like you can you're not at the end. Does that make sense? So how would you know from empirical evidence? Okay, well, I can rationalize it's going. Where is it going? You don't know what today or the next day is going to bring, or next year.
Is that not the leap, though?
Yeah,
you don't know.
I'm just saying that I think you need to have, again, refine the definition, because at the start, the definition was predicated on like empirical evidence.
Well, you've nailed it on the head there. I think you have nailed it on the head. But in terms of the people at home who are listening to this and are like, ooh, like that's where I come from. You mentioned truth with a capital T, and you said, oh well, basing your life in ensuring or following that truth with a capital T. What define that truth with a capital T and through an everyday, through like just a basic day? How do you pursue truth? Or how do you are you following the truth, or are you making sure that the truth is following you in your life, that you're conveying the truth?
So, truth with a capital T, like the totality of what truth means, the source of what truth means. When you say this statement's true or that statement's true, or the statement's false, right? You're pointing to an overarching truth of what truth is.
Okay.
So truth with a capital T is the source of whatever that is. Again, he might say, I fully understand what that means, but that's what I think it's pointing to. Like John Peterson talks about, if we act in accordance with the truth, it'll bring about the most habitable form of reality, if that makes sense. So think about it like the armor of God, like the belt of truth. It's that which keeps everything together, stops it from unraveling. Okay.
Truth is the big Bible's fact checker.
It's the big belt that keeps everything together, right? And that's arguably the most habitable form of reality, when everything's not running away from you.
Because if you break the truth, if the truth is broken, which it can't be, it's impossible for the truth to be false. That's why it's called the truth. And if that's broken, as it is rightly so in the belt, everything will fall apart. Yeah,
and if you think about it back to the eBay example, okay, so if society was not predicated on the faith in truth as a whole, that the future will act in accordance with truth, if that wasn't the case, everything would run away from you. Like if you didn't wear the belt, you'd get scammed on eBay. You'd go to the shops, and instead of getting your food, you'll get mugged. And the doctor wouldn't have his qualifications, right? I don't know what he'll do. Steal your organs and sell them on the black market or something, right? Dear knows what's going to happen. It'll run away from you. It will not be very habitable.
Indeed. So that's
why I think it's a very Jordan Peterson way of looking at it, because that's how I heard him. That's the kind of language he uses. But
in terms of the armor of God, we're not looking at the belt of truth, because, I mean, if you're a regular listener to our podcast, okay, you will have some idea of what the truth is in terms of it, so we won't really need to explain that. But we're talking about faith, and in the armor of God, it's the shield of faith. That's how so that we can. It says here, extinguish all the fiery darts of the evil one, pretty much.
Yeah, so I already did an episode, I don't know what number it is, it's about the burning bush. I went heavily into that notion, so
go back and watch that one. We forgot what the one it was, but we'll make sure to tell you.
My Life of Moses Part 2,
Josh is the Moses expert that he grew Aaron's beard.
I should really do more of that series, because I want to do it chronologically and not skip. If I allowed myself to skip stories, I would probably be episode 8 in by now. But it's like the ball caps or the bottlenecks are real. It's like I want to get this right. Also chronologically.
So just going back to how you live, for example, about this overarching truth with a capital T. My question is, like, well, you can only decipher the truth when you see falsehoods, when you can distinctly compare it to something. And then you say, well, in modern philosophy, it's this reality versus, what was it, the imperial...
The imperial rule, the empiricism.
Empiricism, right. So
Seeing
it's this idea of there's something outside of that. And I find that, like it says in the Bible, that it's the belt. Yes, it's outside of it, but it's also like
it
inside of it. It's
more
like,
specifically, it transcends.
Exactly, but I find that it's that part of us lies within faith. Every part of us. Think of it like if you have your two, reality, and then that word that I can't say that you keep saying, empiricism, right? Got those two things. They're like floating in, say they're underwater or something, and the water around them is that faith. Would you say? And what I mean is that everything that we do, because I'm holding true to my understanding, everything that we do is faith based. Because we can know something can go wrong. We have the ability to look at something and apply that. Oh, that could break, or that could fall apart, or oh, I don't like this. Oh, that's a bit risky. We have that function, but I believe faith and experience and belief allow us to continue and step forward and take risks and live not in a life controlled by fear. Because I mean, falsehoods comes with fear, whereas truth comes with, courage and bravery and taking a step, taking that leap of faith. It's a courageous thing. It's a brave thing to do. When a baby takes its first step, do you think that when everybody oh wow, yeah, that everybody goes, oh wow, yeah, because like it's never done that before. This is the first time of this thing. But does the baby take any kind of faith into believing my legs can do this? No, a baby doesn't think that at all. It just does it because everybody else around it has done it. And that's how we think as human beings. Everywhere around us, we're very environmental. And if everything around us is doing something that follows a kind of norm that is not anomalous, we will then have faith or believe that we can do it also. For example, your camera working right there. We only have faith that it's working right there because we can apply it and we can see it and we can understand that it's affecting our world as we speak right now. Okay? Turn off the lights. Is the camera still working? We wouldn't be able to see anything. We have faith that it's still working because of all the different things in place. So how I apply this to my life is, I think it's pretty obvious, obviously, because I could say that and everybody would be going, yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah, fair enough. But you were talking about Kyle there. And Kyle would just call that belief. And I believe, I mean...
It's normal belief.
Just normal... Well, that's just belief. That's evidence-based belief. Like, what's the magic ingredient in faith that, says it's different from belief? That magic ingredient is just that you don't know. Like, you don't know for sure. Like, you don't know for sure what your gas line is doing, for example. You don't know it at every point of the day. And if a spark happened and this house blows up, okay, we don't know, okay? But the evidence is there to say, actually, no, it's fine. That's fine. We're going to continue to have heating in our house or blah, 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 okay? But also, if you've had a tingle in your... if you thought that there was a problem, then you would go and check it out. That's what I mean. So that's the difference between faith and belief for me. And the Bible talks about faith all the time, And Jesus himself, right? He never went out into the world and said to believe, to have a Kyle kind of faith, where it's oh well, it's not faith if it's just belief. Jesus went into the world to prove, he's the Son of God. He told it that he was the Son of God. He claimed he was the Son of God. He performed miracles, and these are all historical. This is all historical documents as well, that he did these things. And he rose from the dead. Okay? So I put my faith in the only person that's ever risen from the dead. Okay? Has Charles Darwin risen from the dead? No. Okay? As any person ever risen from the dead, why would I want to put my faith in any other person except for the person who's done it? And he can say that I can do it. That says that I'll do it one day as well. Where I will be one day called home. So there's the evidence that Jesus came to this earth to provide us with that. He's not here right now, okay, but I have faith that he will be again one day because of that evidence. That's faith. And, you'd be like, oh, well, is that not belief? Well, then if Kyle says, or anybody says, oh, Ben, then that's just belief because of the evidence. Well, then, yeah, I agree. But then that means you
Yeah,
You don't believe it though. That's the thing. They don't believe it.
Yeah, but we don't always use belief and faith interchangeably. Not always. I think the Germans do. I think they just have one word for both. If I'm not mistaken. I'm not German, and I'm crap at my own language, let alone other people's languages. But you think there is a difference between the word belief and faith?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's interesting because faith is a positive word. You know, faith is something that encourages, you know, have faith. Nobody says have belief. You know, well, believe is like, oh, believe in Santa, believe.
What people do, they said, you gotta believe.
You gotta believe, brother.
Believe in me.
You gotta believe. Yeah, believe in me. Have faith in me. That's what it means.
Right.
So they're very, very similar, but ultimately for me,
Do you think in some situations they can mean the same thing?
yes. Like
What
believe
about-
believe in the Lord Jesus Christ and
what-
have faith in him. Like people say that.
What about, so there's we need to make a distinction of belief in something and belief that something exists or does something.
Okay.
Belief in and belief that.
Okay. Do you believe in Santa?
I don't believe in him. Maybe I should. I certainly don't believe that Santa.
A lot of
But I believe in the Christmas spirit, I suppose.
Yeah.
You know, what is if belief invokes action. You know, we have our Christmas traditions. What's that predicated on? Why do we do that? There's something that we must believe something about it.
If you just
Most
connect
people
the
don't
dots.
believe that Santa exists, but I'd say a lot of people believe in Santa, in the sense that why do we dress up like idiots?
So
and
then, can you have
plaster decorations of reindeer?
Okay.
There's some level of belief.
But
in
can you have
something?
faith in Santa? Can you put your faith in Santa?
No.
No, you can't, because then that's the difference. You know, you can't put your faith into Santa primarily because he doesn't exist. Sorry, you know, in that sense, and that metaphysical. He's not a big fat man in a red suit with reindeer that flies around the world giving gifts and blah blah blah. You know, so you cannot have faith in him, but you can believe in him. You know, little kids do, and we say, "Oh yeah, that's fine." You know what I mean? That's the difference. That's the key difference. So somebody will say, well, then what's the difference? Somebody has said this to me. What's the difference then, believing in God and believing in Santa? And it kind of strikes me as a little bit arrogant when people say that, because millions and millions and millions of people, you know, believe in God, you know, and apart from kids, not many people believe in Santa, you know. And they're kids. They're only just kids, you know. And eventually they get told that, you know, well, or they figure it out. I was brought up without Santa. I was never told, like, I was off the bat was told there's no such thing as Santa Claus.
Shocking.
I know, and it was great because I had this kind of intellectual power in primary school. And then it was really fun. No, I'm going off on a tangent. It was great because I was just sitting there. Everybody in my primary school class was like, Ben, no, Santa Israel, explain the presents. And I was just sitting there going, and why does it say from mum and dad? You know, and I was like destroying these kids' dreams. And then I remember there was this one girl who was like, oh, no, it's true. You know, Santa's my dad. And I was like, oh, finally someone gets it. And then she proceeded to say, I'm an elf. And I was like, no. And then she went, yeah, I'm an elf. My dad's Santa. And he visits all of you guys too. So she completely misunderstood the vibe. So
I think she transcended your understanding more specifically.
Evidence-based. So in some ways, I was a Santa Claus atheist. And I was saying, oh, no, look at all the evidence. The evidence points towards there not being a Santa. And I feel like a lot of people who don't believe in God have that kind of attitude of, you know, oh, there is no evidence for God. But, like, come on. Look up evidence for God. You know, just, you know, like, look, think about it, right? Just really think about it. Millions and millions of people for generations and generations and generations have believed in some idea of God, have placed worship in something. C.S. Lewis calls this the great, what's it called? Basically, this new modern secular worldview is outnumbered to the thousands of years of every civilization worshipping a god. So this new secular worldview, this atheist worldview, is actually the youngest and most new, and people pit, all of these other ideas, all these other religions, all these other gods.
There has been people who
completely
there has been people who didn't believe in God.
Nah, but it's not. It wasn't. It was vastly, vastly outnumbered. Everybody worshipped and believed in a god at some stage. Even if you're an atheist, you have faith in your understanding of whatnot. You weren't there at the beginning of the universe, but you have faith in your particular idea. But I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, because to me there is not enough evidence to back up the claims that every atheist says to me rhymes it off. Whereas I make sure that everything I say is backed up and has been backed up. We have the Bible, we have historical documents, we have everything that an atheist wants to have about their particular worldviews, about the Jurassic and Cretaceous period, okay? About the dawning of the time in the universe, okay? Charles...
the dawning of the time.
The dawning of the time in the universe. What is his name? Mr. Dawkins, in his book, The God Delusion, claims that, maybe it was more likely that aliens created... Like, why is Dawkins, okay, the leading scientist, Kyle is his number one fan, right? And I love you, Kyle. I really, really do. Okay, but like this man Dawkins would rather believe that aliens kicked us off than an intelligent designer. Now what does that tell you? That doesn't ring any kind of scientific thinking. It just sounds like arrogance to me. It just sounds like, well, this is rather be it, and I absolutely refuse there to be a heathen god. And if you look online at most of Dawkins' arguments against God, very few of them are science-based. Most of them are about a god who's just tyrannical and evil and does this and does that. Whenever he's questioned about it, okay, like science goes out the window whenever most atheists, like they start with science, they really, really do. But you see, you can believe in science, but to put your faith in science, that's a different thing. Kyle's dream world is
I'd make a distinction: belief in and belief that.
Mm-hmm.
No one believes in science. It's not a belief structure.
Mm-hmm.
You can believe that science can make predictions.
So,
of the
what do you
future
think of people who say, "Oh, do you believe in God?" and then they go, "Oh, I believe in science." How do you respond to that?
Don't know what they're talking about. Plain and simple, but
that's how you make.
What do you want me to tell you?
Scientifically proven.
Well, it's not a worldview. It doesn't provoke action. It doesn't have a value structure. It doesn't have a telos, a goal.
It doesn't have structure.
It's not a belief structure.
It's like I believe in that sofa, and that sofa could...
It's a set of tools.
Yeah, exactly.
Valuable tools. I mean, look at the world. That can exist in other people's belief structure and be used to further belief structures. It's not a belief structure in itself. Yeah. But people don't think it's a belief structure. But that's just a thing people say, I believe in science.
Yeah, like, look...
You don't believe in science. It's just a reflective reaction.
A video by Jordan Peterson came to mind. He was in a talk, and the question was, is God necessary in life? And immediately the woman he said was with no, and Jordan Peterson was like, well, actually it doesn't even matter if you believe in God or not. There is God in terms of a moral structure in your head, a belief structure in your head, that if you follow the points up, if you connect the dots of your moral hierarchy, there is something at the top of it or not, and whether you like it or not, that is God to you. And you can choose to ignore it or you can't, but it's always there. It's present there within our subconscious, within everything around us, that there is God. So whether you say you believe in or you believe that...
Well, it's in our very pattern recognition
and the Bible calls that...
Because depending on what you're looking for, you will see different things.
Exactly, and the Bible calls that we're made in the image of God. The Bible talks about that in the very, very first few pages of the Bible. The Bible talks about these things. That's why I put my faith in the Bible, because it is a belief structure. It's a set of understandings.
Can you explain elaborate further on how what Jordan Peterson says about everyone having a highest good aim?
So
that's at the very least true to them.
So
how does that
whether
relate to you?
whether you
being
believe
made in the
in
image of God.
whether you believe in God or not, okay, Christians see if you're a human being, you are made in the image of God. From your most basic form to your most advanced form, you are made in the image of God. You're a child of God, or you're made in the image of God. You're a child of God if you've been saved. So, what Jordan Peterson was saying in this video, he, and what I will obviously add and put my own understanding to, I'm not directly quoting him, but basically he talks about this hierarchy in our minds. There always has to be hierarchy. And he's a big fan of saying that there always has to be a hierarchy. There always has to be a better than you are today. He talks about how you should never tell a 20-year-old to say, oh, be happy, be satisfied with yourself. You shouldn't be. You should be happy and satisfied with who you could be, and you should work towards that. And I agree. 100% I agree, because the worst advice anybody could give me is just, oh, well, do it for yourself, be happy with yourself and all of that. There's something in our brains.
How are you relating this back to being the
right now? There's something in our brains that is telling us that we need to be satisfied and we need to be better. There's a hierarchy in our heads that are telling us that there is something more fulfilling, I would say, fulfilling than we are today, than we currently are sitting here, than anybody sitting there at home. You know, that's why we're going. That's why we have to keep going to work, to walk, to the kitchen, to blah, 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 blah. Every action that you have is going somewhere, is in, how you say, the understanding that I will be better by doing this than I am currently right now. That's the leap of faith. That's the understanding of, okay, with all the evidence that I've gathered, if I do this thing, I can take this leap of faith. It's like our dragons episode. Go and kill that dragon. Go and fight the dragon.
How is this really being made in the image of God?
I'm getting to this hierarchy. At the very top of that hierarchy is God, is the lawgiver, is the provider. We are all trying to get there. We're all trying to climb up that hierarchy, this moral hierarchy, the social hierarchy, whatever there is. There always has to be hierarchy. Okay? Now, faith is the ability to climb, is the understanding of trying to climb up to that. And you can see this. It says, by faith you have been saved. Jesus was the only direct route to God, to the very top of that hierarchy. And that's what faith is. Faith is what gets us from one point to the other. Let's say the beginning of this hierarchy, the beginning of my walk in life, is to walk through that door. Okay? Now, I don't actually see what's on the other side of that door, but I know that it's your hallway, okay?
Okay.
I believe it's your hallway, okay? But faith allows me to understand that if I go out that hallway, go into my car, one action leads to another, I will be in a better place than I currently am today. Okay? It's
you hate it that much.
But
wow.
it's hard to understand. It's hard to put into words basic life, because it's hard to put into words how hard it is to explain basic life, because people are so comfortable with life, how they're living it. It's like, oh, I'm just doing this to have a good time. No, you're not. Okay? That's what you have made yourself believe. That's what you put your faith in. You put your faith into things that make you feel good. Okay? But everybody is always trying to be better. Nobody is ever satisfied for long. Nobody is ever satisfied. It's like, oh yeah, I got £1 million and I'm going to be satisfied. Then they end up doing stuff with £1 million. They end up having experiences, and they end up learning. And this is what I mean about that kind of learning aspect, of why we can only have faith with things that we have observed already and experienced and have learned lessons through. Okay? So hierarchy, that key word, and how to transcend it, how to get to the top, is purely faith-based.
How does this relate to you? You've made you've talked so much I can't remember what what I was questioning. But anyway,
the only reason why we have that hierarchy is because we're made in the image of God. It's because we have that conscience. It's because we can distinguish between right and wrong. Okay, a cheetah, for example, does not have the ability to try and better itself. A cheetah does not gym. A cheetah does not, yes, it can think. These animals can think, and these animals believe that they can catch a deer or can catch prey because they have.
Well, they would bring forth, their goal would be survive, catch deer, feed children. But they bring forth that reality because it's a better one.
They wouldn't strive to better themselves in terms of if a cheetah runs 10 miles and it knowingly knows I can run 20, it won't run laps around a tree every day to build up its, it doesn't do that. Okay, any animal doesn't have this understanding of trying to be better. Because actually, fundamentally, every animal, I believe, is satisfied with what it is because it never had this fall. It never had this desire to be God in its particular circumstance. This top of the food chain, that's where we are. But we're still trying to climb an infinite amount of hierarchies through life. We're trying to be the best. And it's that kind of religion that people have to be better that they so desperately want to be. They so desperately want to crave, especially in this day and age where followers is all you need and stuff like that. It's so easy to try and, achieve a sense of, I think it's power. That's the thing I'm looking for. People want power, a godly amount of power. And, I mean, who doesn't?
Is power bad in itself?
Power... like I said, it's a tool, and there's many different types of power, but I know that there's no point putting faith into people with power. I put all my faith in God and Jesus because he transcends all of those, who is powerful, but I believe is the only one worthy to have so much, obviously that power.
You just said don't put your faith in people with power.
I don't put all my faith in people, to be honest. Obviously, because we're all flawed in various many and very complicated ways. But
when you're talking about hierarchies, aim for the top of the hierarchy. We need to transcend the hierarchy, whatnot. One step needs to another. We're always going somewhere.
We're growing.
There's a journey.
Essentially, we're growing.
Right. I get that. But hey, for example, I was watching. So Peterson did a opposing views episode of someone that's pro-Islam and someone that's against Islam.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness, the comment section is a cesspit. Do you know the stereotypical angry atheist?
Yeah.
And stereotypical angry Christian.
Mm.
They're stereotypical. Well, I didn't realize there's a stereotype for it, but there's now. There's a stereotypical angry Muslim. Okay, a lot of people were raising hell down there. But anyway, so there was a point that was brought up time and time again of why a Muslim would say point as a flaw in Christianity, which I think it's fundamentally backwards. But they would press on the idea that Christianity is and they'd say they'd get this a bit from Nietzsche as well, but I think they're shooting themselves in the foot if they're doing that. But anyway, they would say that Christianity is a slave mindset religion. It's very submissive. It's very we just turn all the other cheek, okay, and it's a lot more profound than that, because I put a comment saying it allows for what it means to embody God. It's not we Christians, the goal is, yes, right, most of the time they take this passage out of context anyway, turn the other cheek, but yes, you can have righteous wars. You're not expected to just be overthrown if you're a country. Obviously fight for what's good, but it's not done triumphantly necessarily. It's we don't want war, but we will go to war if that's what the calling is. But what I'm trying to press on, you say, okay, God's at the top of the hierarchy. Okay, how does that necessarily relate to the bottom of the hierarchy? So, what the Jesus story is, he came down from the top of the hierarchy, wherever you want to, way you think about that. Right, came down from heaven.
Placed himself beneath man.
The thing that transcends the holy mountain, heaven. Right, he came down, and he died as a criminal. Okay, he was the lowest of lives.
It's the
you know what I mean? Yeah. He was falsely accused And not only that,
And sentenced.
The person who sentenced him knew he was innocent.
Mm-hmm.
He was subjected to torture, and he was subjected to one of the worst deaths imaginable, knowing that he was in full well innocent. And not only that, despite his innocence, they released a murderer.
Mm-hmm.
How bad can it get? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's good. That's a serious question. How much worse can it get?
Well,
That's the person who. It's not just about the top of the hierarchy. Jesus fills the entire hierarchy.
exactly. Yeah,
He is the servant king.
I was about to just talk about the Last Supper. You know, what strikes me the most is Jesus washes his disciples' feet, and they're all like, "What are you doing? You are the heir to heaven. What are you doing, washing my feet?" And then the next thing you know, he talks about the bread and the wine being his body, and you know, it's this symbol of remembering Jesus's death and what he did for us. And he, on the same night he washed his feet, was a servant. On the same night he was talking about the kingdom of heaven. The same night he was arrested, betrayed, and taken and beaten. You know, like, that strikes me, and you put it very well when he says he fills the hierarchy. You know, Christianity is the only faith out of the hundreds of faiths. It's the only faith in the earth that exists that places the deity, that has the deity placed beneath man to lift man up, to better themselves, because we can't do it ourselves. That's the point. We can't get to God because we're not God. We needed God. And instead of people like, oh, why doesn't God just appear and, you know, take away all the bad and, you know, like, you know, just save everyone. He did do that. You know, that's what he did. That's what he did at such a perfect and precise time at during the Roman Empire, where time was pretty much recorded accurately and all of that. And I could go into that, but like, the idea is he did it in such a way that was so complete and so wonderfully, and also prophesied about thousands of years before, hundreds of years before, and fulfilled each and every prophecy. Okay, so that might actually indicate that, okay, there's still some prophecies that need to be fulfilled. And if it's like, I don't know what it is, but like 70% of the prophecies in the Bible, okay, that have come to pass, like all the prophecies in the Bible that have been talked about have come to pass, and the only one of the prophecies that haven't come to pass are the ones that say that they are coming to pass later in Revelation and things like that. So if it's such a good track record of fulfilling prophecies, surely then there is a faith there. Like I said, that experience, that understanding that your legs can do the leap of faith. Look at the Bible, look what it says, look at all the things that it's done, look at all the things that it proves. Surely then the evidence is there that the stuff that it's talking about that will come to pass will come to pass. And when it does, which side of the fence are you going to be on? That's the important thing.
I was listening to an earlier episode of Pints with Aquinas. It was a Catholic podcast, and he mentioned, he was talking about faith. He mentioned that, like, the most intelligent of philosophers, right, the most knowledgeable of theologians, right, the deepest of thinkers, through all their toil and, you know, hardship of thinking about things,
Sitting in the rooms,
they you know, they're never gonna get closer to through all that alone, they're not gonna get any closer to what his granny, I think he was mentioning his granny, his faith his granny had, right? Mm. So you make a case for, we've got to have all this evidence, therefore we can make an educated guess of what's true or what not. Mm-hmm. But it's not a refined definition of faith, because faith transcends that. Mm-hmm. Yes, you can have I can't remember what the Latin expression is, but there's an idea of, we have faith that points us towards understanding. It's not necessarily, right, we understand, now we have faith. But it's also not saying we have faith and therefore we don't need to understand. It's faith that points us towards the understanding.
Exactly. Builds us up, brings us closer. There's three stories. So,
but again, like where...
Well,
if it's not the understanding that leads us to the faith, okay, and it's actually faith that points us towards understanding the truth,
don't think...
Where is the faith predicated on?
I don't think you need to have a flipping maxed out definition of life and faith in order to have it. For example, all my understanding...
We're not arguing that.
Oh, I know.
But we're arguing in conversation because you've used the word faith multiple times and there has been disagreements on its definition. And I want to be precise.
Exactly. Well, my faith is like... So, Jesus, there's the three main stories come to mind about faith. The one about the mustard seed, the one about the woman and the 2 coins, and the one about the centurion and the bleeding woman. Okay, Jesus, when somebody asked him, Jesus, what's faith? And he picks up a mustard seed, the tiniest seed. And he says, like, this can move a mountain. That's how much faith it takes. You know, that's, and that...
if you had faith the size of a mustard seed,
you could
tell
see
this mountain to throw itself in the ocean.
Exactly. And that's an incredible thing. You know, and it doesn't require so much brain power as people like to think. It just requires yourself in its truest sense. You know, in its truth, with its capital T, no lies, no differentiate, no pollution, as I like to say, so no mind kind of pollution, no sin. It's just yourself as you are. So that's faith as a mustard seed, something tiny, something not spectacular at all, but can do spectacular things. The next one is the woman with the 2 coins. You have these Pharisees who are standing up and they're praying for people to see them. People are going, oh, how righteous are they? And Jesus scoffs at them and he notices a woman dropping the 2 coins into like the collection. And he says that woman has more faith than all of these Pharisees. That woman has more faith. And it's just, that's all she had was these 2 coins.
The very poor woman that it was literally just pocket change, but that was everything she had.
Exactly. And then you have, and this is probably my favourite one, Jesus is walking through the streets and people are crowding around him and they're talking to him, and there's a woman who's suffering from bleeding, which is just a constant a period, and she's been suffering this her whole life, and she was outcasted because if you have that, you're seen as unclean back in those days. And it was an awful curse. And she was scared because obviously you would be scared to face Jesus, you know, and to face the crowds. And she reached out and just touched his garment, okay? And immediately she was healed. And Jesus says that Jesus felt the power go out from him. And he immediately says, "Who touched me? Who touched me?" And everybody's just like, who touched him? And she comes forth and he's smiling and he says, wow, you know, he's like, well, you have immense faith. And that same day, a centurion, a Roman centurion, so somebody who's not even like a part of this, they're captors, okay? The person that all the Jews hate, these are the Romans, you know, Jesus is meant to save us from the Romans. This Roman centurion comes, "Lord, my servant is sick. Please come and heal him." And Jesus says, "I will go." And he goes, "No, Lord, I'm not worthy. I know that if you would just command it, that he would be healed." And Jesus says this, and he doesn't say this anywhere. He says this. He says, "Truly I say to you, I have never experienced more faith than this." This Roman centurion who was not brought up with the scripture, with the law.
Or there's no one in all of Israel that has as much.
Yes, no one as you. He wasn't brought up the way you and I were brought up, per se, back in those days, with scripture, with the law. He was brought up in Rome. He was a centurion after all. And yet, he witnessed Jesus. He witnessed him. He decided, he believed in Jesus. He believes Jesus existed. He believes the things that he's done. And therefore, he had faith that his servant would be well. And he was well. So the point I'm getting at is faith is what is required for great things to happen, to, as I said, ascend that hierarchy of challenge to better yourself. The woman was healed. The centurion's servant was healed. It wasn't the servant's faith as well. It was the centurion's faith. But ultimately, that allowed then that faith in that household to expand. You know, it wasn't the woman's faith with the 2 coins. All she had, immense faith, immense sacrifice. The mustard seed. What is it that these things all have in common? Is they amount to greatness. They amount to godly acts, to being in that right. So that to me is the definition of faith. It's not, as you said, it transcends definition, because and I agree with you, because we use it all the time. It's just people don't call it faith anymore. That's what I would say.
Yeah,
because even this podcast, it's taken a great deal of faith to hope and to pray that this podcast gets up, and we're just doing it, and we're giving it our all. I mean, we just, as Christians, we want to be able to we want people to see this, and it gives me great courage when Jesus talks about a mustard seed. Like, if one viewer, right, contacted us and said that they found, the Lord, that would make this entire thing worth it. That would just mean that would be it. That would be accomplished, and then we'd have a sense, obviously, to just keep doing it, so we can at least get one more. Your man, Desmond something, he went into World War II without a weapon, and he saved like 46 lives as a medic, and he was a Christian, and he would pray.
Is this the guy that movie was based on?
That movie's based off Hacksaw Ridge, and he would every
That's
day.
a great movie.
It's a fantastic movie, and he always prays, "Lord, let me get one more." Every time he saves one, he says, "Lord, please let me get one more." Every time. And I think as Christians, we need to adopt that kind of mentality. Life's a battlefield. Just give me one more mustard seed of faith. Give me just that amount. And it's not so much as waiting. Desmond did not sit at the bottom of the trench and wait. He went out and he did. The same way that woman sacrificed all she had, those 2 coins. The same way that woman who suffered from not just bleeding, but from social, what's it called? Who was an outcast to society, sacrificed all that they have. Their very lives. Desmond is very live to go.
The way you're describing that is reminding me back in the PlayStation 4 Battlefield 1 days. My favorite thing to do. So I was the medic guy, right? But in Battlefield 1 there was no time period of how long it takes to revive people. So get your thing out, bam, they're up. So I was like, most normal people would be like, wait for a good opportune time to go out and revive people. I would just right, let's just go. They won't expect it, and I'll just keep on going. People would be dying as soon as I get back. I keep doing it faster. It's almost like a human shield. I'm just a mask in front of me. But that's a derailing thing here. But
it's that. Yeah. So just to finish what I was saying, it's that bit. It's that sacrifice. It's that knowing that it's the leap of faith. It's, I could die from this. I could really suffer from this. But I know that there's a higher power, and I know that I'm going to be okay. In fact, I might alter that a bit, because 100%, these women, this man, this centurion, the Desmond, for example, they knew that they weren't going to be okay. There was something there, like, this is deadly, this is dangerous, okay? And it's only afterwards that they can say that they were okay, Same with my life. It's only after I go through crap. It's only after people watching you go through crap that you realize that you go, oh, that was crap. That was a crappy period of my time, but I'm okay now. How am I okay now? And then you look at the review things you've done and you've moved forward. Okay? As Christians, we thank God for that. We rejoice God and we praise God.
So if we take, right, everything we've said about faith so far, if we compare that to how we actually use the word faith, and we'll see how it holds up. Okay. So we talk about the faith, as in like
capital F.
Our religion. Yeah, like the faith. Okay. We talk about we walk in faith. We talk about we have faith. We're acting in good faith. How does this all relate? So what is the faith?
So at the start, we talked about how, well, I talked about how faith predominantly is good. It's a good thing because it brings about good. It brings about betterment. It brings about going up that hierarchy, being better than you were yesterday. It takes faith to do that, and then you become that. We also talked about how it's a branch of belief. You know, it's made of the same stuff, but then it's not like what we talked about Santa Claus. You know, you don't have faith in Santa Claus like you have belief in Santa Claus, or that Santa Claus. And we also talked about it in a Christian sense, in what Jesus actually said about it. So, how do we polish it off? Is what you're saying? How do we round it off with all that we said?
I'm just like related. Like, hey, when we talk about another example, childlike faith. What does that mean? Is childlike faith good? Should we have childlike faith?
It's a wonderful thing, and Jesus says.
And what is childlike faith?
An example I would come to mind is like when your dad, when you're little, throws you up and catches you, you know, and you absolutely love it because as a child you're like, oh, my dad's gonna catch me, but you're not made aware of the issues there. You know, you're the wife is like, what are you doing? that baby could fall and it would be awful, but you're the dad. You're like, oh, you know, you're and the kid's loving it, kid's enjoying it. That's childlike faith. It's faith without. It's faith without thought. It's not thinking about the danger. It's not thinking about the risk. It's I know I'm going to be okay. I have faith that I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
That's to me. That's the difference.
And to play devil's advocate, I'm sure someone would be like, and as a knee-jerk reaction, be like, "Oh, are you suggesting that, you know, we just appeal to authority, don't think about anything?" We say, "Oh, well, that's what they say."
Well,
do we need to have faith in that? Is that the kind of religion Christianity is? Are they anti-intellectual? What is this, Ben? What are you telling me to believe, Ben? Be a child.
That's not me. It's
very childish, Ben.
It's not. Well, the Bible says put away childish things, but then Jesus himself says, unless you have faith like this child. So, you know, you compare that kind of sentence there in the correct context, and you get to the point where it's like, faith is the foundation in which you build your life. Faith is, all right, I've only reached this next step because I had faith. Why would I stop using faith? Keep on using faith to the next one. And that childlike faith is that faith of, I know I'm going to be okay. I'm a Christian. I know I'm going to be okay. You could put me through awful things. I've been through awful things. And I'm not shaken. I'm not shaken. Because that's what faith is to me. Faith is immovable to me. My faith is immovable. And somebody's going to be like, oh, well, you can't have a reasonable discussion. No, I have faith that discussion will be fruitful. But that doesn't mean that it's affecting my ability to have a fruitful discussion.
May I comment on my one devil's advocate? I've heard that response before from people. It's like, well, just you don't think about these things, but it's like you clearly haven't spent any amount of time with a young child. All children do when they're at a certain age is ask why. Mm-hmm. Why? My niece, when she was in that stage, I'd be like, right, she's gonna ask me why. I'm gonna give her
up to a mic.
I'm gonna give her the answer until the question why makes no sense. Right? I was like, why? Because of this. Why? Because this. Why? Because this. Why isn't a valid question there? Why? I'm like,
it's the most powerful question in the world. Like,
you know, and I so we refine again, right? What is childlike faith? And I think it's something like being able to ask why in like a joyous manner that does not disregard authority necessarily speaking. Us back to that whole faith that points towards understanding, but it's not. It doesn't have to have its source in understanding.
Yeah, it's like the difference between a lesson and an argument. You know, if you genuinely don't know how gravity works and you ask your physics teacher, why does this ball bounce? And he tells you gladly, and then you learn something. That's a genuine lesson. But if you say,
I asked my physics teacher why until like at that point physics wasn't really established in that field. I'd be like, so why is this happening? Like, well, Josh, we don't know yet.
Big Daniel McClellan.
I'm like, oh, cool.
Look at him on. He goes to my church.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, the difference between that is that's a genuine lesson that you learned and you take to heart, and now you can answer other people when they ask why a ball bounces. You can go, oh, well, actually because of A, B, C, and D. But then you have, let's say, an argument or something, and then you say some comment, and then somebody goes, why? You know, like, they're not saying why to learn. They're saying why to make you say something so that they can further basically expose
what are you talking about?
your way of thinking. I don't know. What I'm saying is you got to be careful that childlike faith is that first understanding of asking why, you know, just to understand, just to know, just to be like, well, this is that. Tell me, teach me. That's what Christianity, I believe, is. It's just like, well, teach me, Lord. Open my eyes. Let me communicate in a way that people will understand. Rather than, why, Lord, did you let this happen to me? And why this and why that? Because it says you not test the Lord your God. It's these little things in the Bible and in everyday life that connect, that really puts faith into perspective, that really makes you have faith. Like I said, you can't live without faith. People watching this haven't gotten to this point without faith. It always takes a certain amount of faith to get from A to B, to get higher. That's what I'm saying.
I've got a few points here. So Thomas Aquinas, as far as I understand, so he had like 4 points of what faith brings. Okay, so, and you can comment on them. Through faith, the soul is united to God. What do you think?
I would agree. To the extent that, because Jesus is the only person that really explained faith.
Okay, why does faith unite the soul through faith the soul is united to God? Why does faith unite the soul to God?
Because it is by faith by which we are saved and not by works.
Okay, number 2, eternal life through faith, eternal life has already begun in us.
Oh yeah, Christians are immortal. You know, like, we have the faith. Jesus is our Lord and Savior. Jesus died for my sins, your sins, everybody who's watching, everybody on the earth, he died for their sins. And from that moment, you, as a Christian, your eternal life has begun.
Okay, so number 3, we get the right direction to our life through faith. That's something to do with your upward trajectory of the hierarchies.
Mm-hmm. Upwards, going forwards, growing.
Yeah, so you already commented that. 4, overcome temptations through faith.
Overcoming temptations through faith.
So that's again.
Well,
that's back in the idea.
I think of the Pharisees and how many times they would just stand up and pray and preach and look like this person who knows everything. And you know, and obviously they could do anything they wanted. They have done everything they wanted. They had so much power, and obviously that comes with temptation. But faith in God for protection, for shielding you. That's why the Bible calls it, you know, the shield of faith, to block the flaming darts of the evil one. There's a reason they call it the flaming darts. They burn. All right. It's this, like, even a kid at 11 years old or something who is a Christian, who doesn't know anything about like philosophy or science or stuff, you know, if they're a Christian, then they have all they need. They have all they need to fight those kinds of like opinions and things from them, because they have that shield. It's perfectly okay for them to say, "Oh, I don't know, but I'm a Christian anyway." You know, yeah, obviously they like, you're a true Christian when you know why you're a Christian. It's because of Jesus Christ died for your sins. But it's just so, it's peaceful to rest in that, to know that I'm not actually put under the pressure to know everything in my life, because God's done that for me. God does do that for me.
Okay. I've got one more thing. I probably shouldn't take that long. So we talk about acting in good faith. I think we want to elaborate on that. So again, back to my definition of the trust that the future will be in accordance to the truth. So acting in good faith, would that be like the same as acting in accordance to the truth? Acting in good faith? What do you think?
Well, what's bad faith? The same way we
So
can
it's like,
only distinguish truth once we know what false
okay,
is.
so acting in bad faith, it's like you're undermining what society's predicated on. So if you're acting in bad faith, you're looking to like trick people, you're looking to like be underhand. He's a slithery snake. He's not quite what it seems. He's not acting in truth.
Faith, as I said, is always the tool used to have that upward trajectory. Bad faith is selfishness, because you are still looking yourself to grow. Bad faith is doing that, but at the expense of others. So instead of using faith and faith mustard seeds to chart your course to godhood,
yeah,
you're using other people.
Yeah, there's one thing that I've went over here that I was thinking about this during the week. So Toby asked me, he's like, Josh, got a question for you.
Big Toby question.
What are the symbolic implications of people drawing penises on walls? I was like, you know what, Toby? It's a stupid question, but I will give you a serious answer because that's what he expects from me.
Do not cast your pearls before pigs, Josh.
No, it's a good question. And I was thinking, I was like, it's like picture swearing. So what is swearing? It's like you're doing something that's not in this. It's not quite in the pattern of what's expected. It's like you're tearing through the expectation. So there's a shock. Okay, what times do people usually swear? Like when they're being shocked, right? It's like reality hasn't appeared to be what I thought it was. Bam! What is that? You know, Jordan Peterson talks about it's the same signals that go off when we swear, the same signals of when we're confronted by like a predator. So it's why people with Tourette's, distinctly just swear? Why do they not just say random words? It's because that's this part of the brain that's on haywire. It's the part where like there's a predator, right? This is the same with monkeys, I think. So technically speaking, there are monkey swear words right there. Just saying.
You just scream.
So it's just like a picture form of swearing. Now, why am I talking about that? I think that's cursing and swearing. It's like the opposite of faith. Now, what is faith? Right, it's the trust that the future will be acting in accordance to truth. Swearing is like saying, screw the lot. You know, I'm not gonna be. You're disjointing what's like habitable reality is with this like thing that can't be addressed. You're firing these things out. What are you gonna do about it?
It's a crack in the path, essentially, and you're addressing it. It's like you stub your toe.
It's a middle finger to the structure of reality, or if it's
profound,
or if it's like if it's directed at someone, it's like it's maybe the future will act in accordance to truth, maybe, but certainly not with you. Right, that's what swearing someone out is. You know, does that make sense? Do you have any more things to talk about? Do you have any more Toby questions?
We need to do a podcast dedicated to Toby questions. We need to get Toby on.
Toby's really good at
question and answers.
Toby's really good at these conversations because he's just fascinated by what goes on in my head.
He's fascinated by what goes on and everything.
Say again?
He's fascinated by what goes on about everything, which is admirable. Like, so yes, bad faith, good faith, faith in general, neutral faith, I'll say, is always striving to be neutral faith. Faith as is a positive thing. Bad faith is using that positive thing to your own advantage, and good faith is letting things go and just believing and just letting it be and just making sure that I know I'm going to be okay.
Well, acting in bad faith would be arguably being unfaithful to.
Well, yeah, it's unfaithful to
process.
faith itself.
Whoa.
How profound.
Right. To wrap things up now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks very much for listening. Is that what you meant by wrap
That's
it up?
it.